Viktor Kozlov's hands wrapped around the young nurse's throat and squeezed. Her feet kicked desperately in empty air as he lifted her off the ground like a rag doll, his fingers crushing her windpipe. "You're all going to watch her die," the 7-foot giant roared at the frozen crowd of doctors and patients, his other hand reaching for the unconscious girl on the gurney. Blood poured from his ruined face, where 240-pound security guard Raymond Torres had tried to stop him. Torres now lay motionless in a pool of broken glass and his own blood. Kozlov tightened his grip. The nurse's eyes rolled back. Then Maya Chen, 5'1", 110 pounds, the rookie everyone mocked, did something nobody expected. She smiled. And Viktor Kozlov realized he'd made a fatal mistake. Smash that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will blow your mind. Drop a comment with your city so we can see how far this true story travels. Now let me rewind and show you how we got to this impossible moment. The fluorescent lights in Metropolitan General's emergency room hummed with that specific frequency that only healthcare workers notice, a low, electric buzz that signals trouble coming. Maya Chen felt it in her bones at 2:47 a.m. on that Saturday morning, though she couldn't have explained why. "Chen, you're hovering again." Rita Blackwood's voice cut through the controlled chaos like a scalpel through flesh. The charge nurse stood at the central station, arms crossed, her 58 years of life and 32 years of ER experience radiating disapproval. Rita had survived the crack epidemic, gang wars, 3 hospital mergers, and more code blues than she could count. She had exactly 0 patience for nervous rookies. "Sorry, Rita." Maya kept her eyes on the vitals monitor. "Mr. Patterson's oxygen saturation is dropping. It's at 87. It's dropping because he's 92 years old and keeps pulling off his nasal cannula every time you check on him." Rita didn't look up from her computer. "Go start an IV on bed 6. Dr. Sullivan needs it 5 minutes ago." Maya nodded, her ponytail bobbing as she gathered supplies. She'd learned in 6 weeks not to argue with Rita. The older nurse had a reputation. She'd broken 3 rookies in the past year alone, sent them running to outpatient clinics or dermatology offices where the worst emergency was a bad rash. "She looks like she wandered in from a high school volunteer program." The voice belonged to Dr. Marcus Sullivan, and it carried from the break room where he stood with 2 residents, none of them bothering to lower their voices. Maya's hands didn't shake as she drew up saline, but something cold settled in her chest. "I give her 2 more weeks, max," Sullivan continued. He was 43, with the jawline of a movie star and the ego of a neurosurgeon, despite being in emergency medicine. "First time some meth head gets aggressive, she'll fold. They always do." The residents laughed. Maya kept walking, kept her face neutral, kept her breathing steady. They didn't know her. They saw the small frame, the quiet demeanor, the way she flinched when people yelled. They saw weakness. They had no idea what she'd survived to get here. "Bed 6, Chen, now!" Rita snapped her fingers. Maya moved quickly through the chaos. Saturday night in Chicago's Metropolitan General was a symphony of suffering. Drunks sleeping off binges in corner beds, overdoses getting Narcan, domestic violence victims with stories that didn't match their injuries, and the regular parade of chest pains, strokes, and traumas that never stopped coming. She'd just finished starting the IV when the automatic doors whooshed open, admitting a blast of February cold and 2 paramedics wheeling a gurney. "Female, mid-20s, overdose," the lead paramedic shouted. "Unresponsive but breathing, BP 90/60. We've given 2 rounds of Narcan, minimal response." The ER exploded into choreographed chaos. Dr. Sullivan strode forward, suddenly all business, barking orders. "Get her to trauma 2. Rita, I need a line. Jackson, get respiratory down here. Move, people!" Maya stepped back against the wall, hands clasped behind her back. She watched the dance. the beautiful, terrible choreography of saving a life. Sullivan was good, she had to admit. His movements were precise, efficient. But he was loud, feeding off the adrenaline, turning the tension up instead of diffusing it. Rita anchored the chaos with heavy, sure steps, finding a vein on the first stick despite the patient's collapsed veins. The respiratory therapist arrived within 90 seconds, already pulling intubation equipment from his bag. But Maya's attention drifted. Something felt wrong. Not with the overdose patient. Something else. Something coming. It wasn't a sound. It was a vibration. A low thrumming that seemed to shake the floor tiles beneath her sneakers. She looked toward the ambulance bay doors, her instincts she'd tried to bury for 3 years, suddenly screaming. Raymond Torres looked up from the security desk. Ray was 6'3", 240 pounds of former Chicago PD detective who'd retired after taking a bullet in the shoulder during a convenience store robbery. He worked hospital security now, claimed it was boring, but Maya had seen him handle violent psych patients without breaking a sweat. Ray's face changed. The boredom vanished, replaced by confusion. Then, something Maya recognized from a different life. Fear. Unit 1 to dispatch. Ray spoke into his radio, his voice carrying across the waiting room. I've got an unidentified vehicle moving at high speed in the ambulance lane. This is not an authorized emergency vehicle. Repeat, not authorized. Maya stepped away from the wall. Rita, she said quietly, but her voice cut through the noise of trauma too. Not now, Chen, Rita yelled, trying to get another IV line started. Rita, look at the monitors. Something in Maya's tone made the charge nurse look up. Maya pointed, not at the medical screens, but at the security feed mounted above the nurse's station. On the grainy black and white screen, a black SUV had just smashed through the metal bollards at the entrance of the ambulance bay. Steam poured from its radiator. The driver's door didn't open. It was kicked off its hinges, sent flying into the parking lot like a beer can. Then he stepped out. Even on the small screen, the man was impossible to comprehend. He stood in the February cold without a jacket, wearing only a torn gray t-shirt that strained against muscles that looked carved from granite. He tilted his head back and opened his mouth in what was clearly a scream, though the camera had no sound. Jesus Christ, Dr. Sullivan breathed, pausing in the middle of intubation. Who is that? That, Maya whispered, her training from another life kicking in as she assessed the threat. Is a problem. The man on the screen didn't walk, he charged. He covered the 30 yards from the wrecked SUV to the ER entrance in seconds, moving with terrifying speed for someone his size. Ray stood up, his hand going to the taser on his belt. Sir, stop right there. This is a restricted area. The automatic doors started to open, but not fast enough. The man didn't wait. He lowered his shoulder and hit the reinforced glass at full speed. The sound was like a gunshot. The entire ER went silent. Heart monitors beeped in the sudden quiet. Alarms rang. But everyone stood frozen, watching as the safety glass spiderwebbed, then exploded inward in a shower of crystalline fragments. Through the destroyed entrance stepped something that looked more like a bear than a man. He had to be 7 feet tall. His skin was flushed deep red, veins bulging from his neck like rope. His eyes were black holes, pupils blown so wide there was no iris left. He was frothing at the mouth, breathing in harsh gasps that sounded like an engine revving. Maya knew what she was looking at. She'd seen it twice before, once in Kandahar and once in Syria. Excited delirium syndrome, a catastrophic dump of every stress hormone in the body, granting the victim hysterical strength and complete imperviousness to pain. It usually ended in death, either the victim's or someone else's. Freeze! Ray shouted, stepping into the center of the hallway, taser leveled. I said freeze! The giant didn't even look at Ray. He looked through him, scanning the room with those black hole eyes. "Where is she?" The voice was barely human, a guttural roar distorted by rage and chemicals. "Give her to me. Give her to me." "Last warning." Ray's voice was steady, professional. "Get on the ground, now!" He fired. The taser prongs hit the giant square in the chest. 50,000 volts of electricity crackled through the air, the wires humming with current designed to drop a grown man instantly. The giant looked down at the prongs embedded in his chest. He didn't convulse. He didn't fall. His face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Then he reached up, wrapped one massive hand around the wires, and ripped the barbs out of his own flesh like he was pulling weeds. Blood trickled down his gray shirt. He dropped the taser cartridge on the floor and crushed it under his boot. "Oh God," someone whispered. "Ray, move!" Maya shouted. The giant lunged. Ray braced for impact, 40 years of life experience and police training telling him to stand his ground, to show no fear. It didn't matter. The giant's backhand caught him across the face with the force of a sledgehammer. Ray's feet left the ground. He flew backward, airborne for what felt like an eternity, before crashing into the triage desk. Computer monitors exploded. Plastic shattered. Ray crumpled to the floor and didn't move. Screams erupted. Patients scrambled off gurneys, tangling in IV lines. An elderly man with a broken hip tried to run, fell, hit the floor hard. A woman clutching her pregnant belly started hyperventilating, eyes wild with terror. "Doctor!" Sullivan, the man who'd mocked Maya's toughness an hour ago, was backing away, his face pale as paper, holding a clipboard in front of him like it was a shield. "Security! Code Gray! Code Silver!" Rita grabbed the phone, her hands shaking for the first time in 20 years. "Get the police! Get SWAT! Get everyone!" The giant stood in the center of the wreckage, chest heaving, scanning the room. His eyes locked onto Trauma 2, where the young overdose patient lay unconscious on the gurney. "Sophia!" he bellowed. He wasn't calling for a nurse. He was calling for the patient. Maya realized three things in rapid succession. First, this monster was here to kill that girl. Second, the police were at least 5 minutes away. Third, nobody else in this room could stop him. She looked at Rita, at Dr. Sullivan, at the terrified residents and nurses huddling behind the central station. She looked at the patients, vulnerable and trapped. She looked at the unconscious girl on the gurney, young enough to be someone's daughter. Then she looked at her hands. Small hands. Steady hands. Hands that had once held an M4 rifle in Helmand Province. Hands that had performed field surgery while mortars fell. Hands she'd promised herself she'd only use to heal from now on. That promise was about to break. Maya stepped forward, placing herself directly in the giant's path. "Hey!" Her voice came from her diaphragm, projecting in a way that didn't match her small frame. Command voice. The voice she'd used to order Marines twice her size to hold pressure on sucking chest wounds. The giant turned. He looked down at her, 7'2" looking at 5'1", and his face registered confusion, like a tank wondering why a flower was blocking its path. "Get out of my way, little girl," he growled, taking a step forward that shook the floor. "I can't do that," Maya said. Her voice was steady. Her hands hung loose at her sides. Every muscle in her body was coiled tight, ready. The giant's face twisted. "You don't understand. She needs me. Sophia needs me. They poisoned her. They're trying to keep us apart." "Sophia's being helped," Maya said carefully. "By doctors. She's safe." "Liars!" The giant's roar rattled the ceiling tiles.
"You're all liars! She's mine! Mine!"
He raised a fist the size of a cinder block. The fist descended toward Maya's head like a wrecking ball, heavy enough to crack her skull like an eggshell. Dr. Sullivan, watching from behind the crash cart, squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't want to see the rookie nurse die. But the sound of impact never came. At the last possible fraction of a second, Maya didn't back away. She stepped in. It was a move that defied every survival instinct a human being possesses. When a monster swings at you, you run. But Maya stepped into the giant's guard, dipping her left shoulder. The massive fist whistled past her ear, close enough that she felt the wind of it, close enough to blow a loose strand of hair across her face. She was inside his reach now, close enough to smell the chemical stench rolling off him, old sweat, blood, methamphetamine cooking through his pores. Maya didn't pause. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Her right elbow shot upward like a piston, connecting squarely with the giant's solar plexus, the bundle of nerves just below the sternum. Thwack! It was a solid hit, a hit that should have dropped a normal man to his knees, gasping. The giant merely grunted. He stumbled back half a step, looking down at his chest in confusion.
You hit me,"
he rumbled. The confusion in his eyes transformed into cold focus.
"You little gnat. You dare?"
"Rita!" Maya yelled, not taking her eyes off the giant. "Clear trauma 2! Get the patient out the back! Now!" "But," Rita stammered, "move!" It wasn't the voice of a subordinate. It was the voice of a commander. Rita snapped into action, grabbing the gurney with Sophia unconscious on top, wheeling it backward toward the radiology corridor. The giant roared. He saw his target slipping away. He lunged forward, reaching out with a hand like a shovel to grab the gurney's railing. He never made it. Maya intercepted. She grabbed his wrist, her tiny hand wrapping around a wrist as thick as a steel pipe. To anyone watching, it looked absurd, laughable. But Maya didn't try to stop him. She knew physics. You can't stop a freight train, but you can derail it. She pulled with his momentum, dropping her center of gravity, extending her leg across his path. Judo throw, seoi nage, modified for extreme size disparity. She twisted her hips, using his forward velocity against him. For one impossible second, the 7-foot giant's feet left the floor. He rotated in the air, his face registering pure shock. Boom! He hit the linoleum with the force of a car crash. The floor shook. Instruments rattled. A ceiling tile cracked and fell. Dr. Sullivan's jaw dropped. Holy! Maya didn't celebrate. She knew better. Excited delirium doesn't register pain. That throw would break a normal man's ribs. For this guy, it was just an inconvenience. "Stay down," she ordered, backing away, hands raised in a defensive posture that anyone with combat training would recognize as Krav Maga. The giant rolled over, blood streaming from his nose where it had impacted the floor. He pushed himself up, his breath coming in harsh growls. He looked at Maya differently now, not with rage, with curiosity. The curiosity of a predator that had just discovered its prey has teeth. He reached down and grabbed a bolted IV pole. The metal screws shrieked as he ripped it straight out of the concrete floor. He held the 6-foot pole like a baseball bat. "Okay," Maya whispered to herself, eyes scanning for options, for weapons, for any advantage. "Plan B." "Who are you?" Dr. Sullivan shouted, his voice cracking. "What the hell are you doing?" "Doctor, shut up and get behind the blast doors!" Maya yelled. The giant swung the IV pole. He was aiming for Maya's head. She ducked, but not fast enough. The heavy metal base clipped her shoulder. Crack! Maya cried out, stumbling sideways. Pain exploded through her left side, white hot and blinding. Her arm went numb. She hit the wall, sliding down, gasping. "Got you," the giant sneered, raising the pole for a killing blow. Maya looked up through swimming vision. She saw the pole rising. She saw the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. She saw the terrified faces of nurses huddled behind the station. She knew she couldn't take another hit. If that pole connected with her skull, she was dead. And if she died, Sophia died. Probably Rita, too. Maybe a dozen others. Her hand fell to her side, brushing against her scrub pockets. Her fingers found something hard and plastic. Trauma shears. Every nurse carries them. Heavy-duty scissors designed to cut through leather, denim, even pennies in demonstrations. Not a weapon. A tool. But in the hands of someone who knew anatomy, a tool became a lifeline. As the giant brought the pole down, Maya didn't dodge. She exploded upward from her crouch, driving her good shoulder into his midsection. Not to hurt him, to get inside the arc of his swing. The pole smashed into the wall behind her, shattering plaster where her head had been a microsecond before. Maya pressed against his chest, grabbed his collar with her numb left hand, gritting through agony, and with her right hand, drove the blunt handle of the trauma shears into the soft point just under his jaw. Mandibular angle, pressure point technique, meant to subdue, not kill. She applied it with lethal force. The giant gagged, eyes watering. The pole clattered to the floor, but he didn't drop. His massive hands came up and wrapped around Maya's throat. He lifted her off the ground. Maya's feet kicked in empty air. She dangled a foot up, his grip like iron around her windpipe. She could feel cartilage compressing. Black spots danced in her vision. She clawed at his hands, like clawing granite. "You fight good," the giant rasped, his face inches from hers. Spittle landed on her cheek. "But you're too small, too weak, just like all of them." Maya's vision began to tunnel. Sound faded to a high-pitched whine. She saw Rita screaming but couldn't hear words. She saw Ray groaning on the floor, trying to crawl toward his gun that had skittered across the room. "I'm going to die here," Maya thought, "on a Saturday night in Chicago. Sorry, Mom." But as oxygen left her brain, a memory flashed. Not from nursing school, from sand. Heat. The weight of a rucksack. A drill sergeant screaming in her face at boot camp. "Chen, when you're choked, you don't pull away. You attack the source. Break the lever." Maya stopped clawing at his hands. She let her body go limp for a split second. The giant, thinking she was passing out, loosened his grip by a millimeter to adjust his hold. That was all she needed. She swung her legs up, wrapping them around his waist, using core strength to crunch upward, bringing her face level with his. Then she did the only thing left. She slammed her forehead into the bridge of his nose. A headbutt. Glasgow kiss. Crunch. Cartilage collapsed. Blood exploded outward, hot and copper-scented. The giant howled, dropping Maya. She hit the floor hard, rolled backward, gasping for air, clutching her throat. The giant staggered back, blinded, clutching his ruined face. He backed into a surgical tray, sending scalpels and forceps clattering across the floor. "Police!" a voice shouted from the entrance. "Drop it! Get on the ground!" Two officers burst through the shattered doors, guns drawn. "Drop it! Get on the ground now!" The giant turned to face them, blood pouring down his face like a crimson mask. He didn't look afraid. He looked annoyed. He roared and charged the officers. "Don't shoot!" Maya croaked, her voice a raspy whisper. "There's oxygen tanks behind him." She saw what the police didn't. Directly behind the charging giant was the respiratory therapy cart, 4 tanks of compressed oxygen. If bullets flew and missed, or passed through him, the resulting explosion would level the entire ER wing. The officers hesitated. The giant was 10 feet away. Maya scrambled to her feet. Her shoulders screamed. Her throat felt crushed. But she started running. Not away from danger. Toward it. Again. Maya's shoulder slammed into Officer Jenkins's shins just as his finger squeezed the trigger. The Glock's barrel jerked downward. The gunshot exploded through the ER, deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet punched through linoleum, sending up a spray of concrete dust instead of igniting the oxygen tanks stacked 3 feet behind Viktor Kozlov's head.
What the hell?
Jenkins screamed, kicking at Maya as they tangled on the floor.
You just assaulted a police officer.
The tanks, Maya rasped, her crushed throat making every word agony. She pointed at the bright red, flammable warnings on the oxygen cylinders. You shoot those, we all burn. Jenkins's face went white as he realized how close he'd come to turning the ER into a crematorium. But the distraction had cost them everything. Kozlov, still blinded by blood from his shattered nose, didn't charge the police. Even through his drug-fueled delirium, some tactical instinct fired. He pivoted left and grabbed the nearest human body. Dr. Marcus Sullivan had been crawling toward the exit on his hands and knees. He wasn't fast enough. Kozlov's blood-slick hand clamped around Sullivan's neck. He lifted the doctor like a briefcase, dragging him backward into Trauma Bay 2.
Back off!
Kozlov roared, his voice wet and garbled.
Back off, or I snap his neck like a twig.
Officer Miller, the younger cop, had his gun leveled, but his hands were shaking so badly the barrel traced figure eights in the air. Drop him! Let the doctor go!
I don't have a weapon.
Kozlov grinned, blood streaming between his teeth. He tightened his grip. Sullivan's face turned purple. His eyes bulged.
I am the weapon.
Kozlov kicked the sliding glass door of Trauma Bay 2 shut. He dragged Sullivan into the corner, out of the line of sight from the hallway. The door locked with a pneumatic hiss. The ER fell into a silence broken only by distant sirens and someone sobbing under a desk. Maya pushed herself up from the floor. Her scrubs were ruined, stained with floor wax and blood that wasn't hers. Her left arm hung useless, the shoulder definitely fractured from the IV pole strike. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. Jenkins stood, furious, grabbing Maya's good arm.
You just let him take a hostage. You assaulted me. What the hell is wrong with you?
Maya turned to look at him. The nervous rookie mask was gone. Her eyes were hard, flat, emotionless. Combat eyes. Officer, she said, her voice dropping an octave, stripping away the customer service politeness. Check your backdrop. That second shot would have turned this wing into a fireball. I didn't assault you. I saved your life. Now let go of my arm before I break your thumb. Jenkins released her like she'd burned him. Rita! Maya barked. The charge nurse looked up from where she'd been frozen by the medication dispenser, still gripping the phone. Yes? Rita's voice was small. The veteran nurse who'd survived 32 years looked lost. Lock down the unit. Divert all incoming ambulances to Harborview. Get the walking wounded out through the fire exit. I want this floor clear of civilians in 90 seconds. Move. Rita didn't question. She started shouting orders, grateful for direction. Maya walked to the nurse's station, her movements controlled despite the pain screaming through her shoulder. She grabbed the chart for the overdose patient, the girl Kozlov had come for. She needed intel. If she was going to take this monster down, she needed to understand why he was here. She flipped open the chart with her good hand. Patient name, Sofia Castellano, age 24. Next of kin, Viktor Kozlov, brother. Do not contact per patient request. Restraining order on file, case number 2024-CR-8847. Multiple ER visits documented. Bruising patterns consistent with repeated physical abuse. Maya closed the file. Her jaw tightened. Not a romance gone wrong. Domestic terror.
A brother who destroyed his sister's life, pushed her to drugs, pushed her to this. And now, high out of his mind, he'd come to save her from the people actually trying to help.
He's her brother,
Maya said to the room. Her voice was flat.
and he's not leaving without her.
Jenkins stared at her. Who are you? You're supposed to be a temp nurse.
I'm the person keeping you alive,
Maya said.
Now shut up and let me think.
10 minutes crawled by. The ER felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Seattle PD had arrived in force. A perimeter was established outside. SWAT was en route but stuck in Friday night traffic, at least 12 minutes out. Inside, it was a nightmare stalemate. Officers Jenkins and Miller crouched behind the nurses' station, guns trained on Trauma Bay 2's door. Inside, Kozlov paced like a caged animal, dragging Sullivan with him. He'd barricaded the door with a crash cart.
"Send her in,"
Kozlov screamed through the glass.
"Send Sophia in or the pretty doctor dies."
Maya stood behind the police line, leaning against the wall. She'd strapped her injured arm across her chest with gauze and surgical tape. She was icing her shoulder with a chemical cold pack, watching Kozlov through the gap in the blinds.
He's cycling, Maya said quietly.
What? Jenkins was wiping sweat from his forehead.
The excited delirium. It comes in waves.
The adrenaline dump peaks, then crashes, then peaks again. Look at him. Kozlov had ripped off his blood-soaked shirt, revealing a torso covered in prison tattoos and old scars. Shrapnel scars. Burn scars. Knife scars. This wasn't his first war. He was panting, his movements becoming twitchy, erratic.
His core temperature is spiking, Maya continued, her voice clinical. Probably 104, maybe 105. When it hits 106, his organs start shutting down. He knows he's dying.
He wants to take someone with him. SWAT is 10 minutes out, Jenkins said. We wait.
Sullivan doesn't have 10 minutes, Maya replied. Look at the doctor.
Through the glass, Dr. Sullivan had stopped struggling. He slumped against Kozlov, his face gray-blue.
He's going into shock, Maya noted. Or having a cardiac event from the stress. Either way, if we wait for SWAT, we're retrieving a corpse.
She stood up and walked to the Pyxis medication machine.
Open it,
she ordered Rita.
"Maya, I can't without a doctor's order."
Maya's look could have melted steel. Rita typed in her code. The drawer hissed open. Maya reached in. She didn't grab bandages or saline. She grabbed vials. Ketamine 500 milligrams, midazolam 10 milligrams, haloperidol 10 milligrams. The B-52 bomber. Chemical restraint strong enough to drop a horse. She drew it all into a single large syringe, her left hand useless, working one-handed with practiced efficiency. She capped it and palmed it against her wrist, securing it with a strip of medical tape so it wouldn't drop. What are you doing? Jenkins stood up. You are not going in there.
He wants Sophia,
Maya said calmly. She reached up and pulled her hair out of the ponytail, letting it fall around her face. She took off the reading glasses she wore for charting and set them on the desk. She grabbed the patient gown from the clean laundry and pulled it over her scrubs.
I'm about her height.
Blonde hair. In this lighting, if I keep my head down, I can pass for her.
"This is suicide,"
Jenkins said, stepping in front of her.
"I can't let a civilian do this."
Maya looked up at him. When she spoke, her voice was different. Command voice.
the voice of someone who'd given orders under fire. "I was a combat medic with the 75th Ranger Regiment for 6 years, Sergeant." The lie came smooth. She hadn't been a ranger, but she'd been attached to them as a CST, Cultural Support Team medic. She'd seen more combat in Kandahar than Jenkins had seen in 20 years on Seattle streets. "I am not a civilian. I'm the only person here who can get close enough to stick him." Jenkins hesitated. The authority in her voice was absolute. "5 minutes," he whispered. "Things go south, we breach with flashbangs." "Give me 3, Maya said. She stepped out from behind the nurse's station into the open hallway. She held her hands up, showing empty palms. The syringe was taped inside her right wrist, hidden by the gown's sleeve. "Victor!" she called out. Her voice trembled perfectly. Manufactured fear. "Victor, it's me! It's Sophia!" Inside the trauma bay, Kozlov froze. He shoved Sullivan aside. The doctor crumpled to the floor, gasping. Kozlov pressed his face against the glass. The delirium blurred his vision. He didn't see Maya Chen, the nurse who'd broken his nose and thrown him to the ground. He saw a small blonde figure in a hospital gown crying. "Sophia?" he croaked. The rage in his face cracked, replaced by twisted, agonizing sorrow. "Sophie?" "I'm sick, Victor," Maya cried, stepping closer. The performance was Academy Award level. "Please, I just want to go home. Let the doctor go. Let him go, and I'll come with you." Kozlov hesitated. He looked at Sullivan, then at the door, then back at the blonde figure that his poisoned brain told him was his sister. "Open the door, Victor," Maya pleaded. "Please?" Kozlov shoved the crash cart aside. Metal screeched against linoleum. He hit the door release. The glass panel slid open. Maya stepped into the lion's den. The smell inside Trauma Bay 2 was primal. Fear, sharp and acidic, mixed with copper blood and the chemical reek of methamphetamine leaching through Kozlov's pores. Maya kept her head lowered, sobbing quietly. Every muscle in her body was coiled, ready to explode. But on the outside, she looked broken, terrified, defeated. "Sophie," Victor breathed. He towered over her, blood still dripping from his ruined nose. Up close, the damage was catastrophic. His eyes were completely bloodshot, the whites turned red. "I'm here, Victor," Maya whispered. She took a step closer. She needed to be within arm's reach. She needed to hit a major vein or large muscle group. With the drugs already in his system, an intramuscular injection might take too long, but it was her best shot. Victor reached out with a shaking hand and touched her hair. "You left me," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You left me alone with them. With Dad. With all of them. I'm sorry," Maya said. She glanced at Dr. Sullivan in the corner. He was conscious, staring at her with terrified, confused eyes. She made a subtle hand motion. "Stay down. We have to go," Victor said, his paranoia spiking again. He grabbed Maya's shoulder, his grip bruising. "They're coming. The demons. The government. They want to separate us. We have to go, now." He pulled her into a hug, his massive arms wrapping around her. This was it. Maya was pressed against his chest. His arms pinned her injured left arm, but her right arm, the one with the syringe, was free. She quietly peeled the tape holding the syringe to her wrist. She uncapped the needle with her thumb. She looked at his neck. The external jugular vein bulged thick as rope. Perfect target. She raised the needle. "You're not Sophia." The voice was a low growl right in her ear. Maya froze. Victor pushed her back, holding her at arm's length. He stared into her face. The delusion had flickered out for just 1 second, a moment of terrible clarity in the sea of madness. He saw the scrubs underneath the gown. He saw the fierce intelligence in her eyes that his broken sister never had. He saw the warrior hiding behind the nurse's uniform. "You're the nurse," he realized. His face twisted from sorrow back to pure hatred. "You tricked me." He saw the needle in her hand. "No!" Maya lunged forward, trying to stab the syringe into his neck before he could react. But Victor was fast, terrifyingly fast. He caught her right wrist mid-air, inches from his throat. His grip crushed down. Maya cried out as she felt bones grinding together. The syringe fell from her numb fingers, clattering to the floor. "You tried to poison me," Victor snarled. "Liar! Liar!" He didn't hit her. He didn't throw her. He grabbed her by the throat with one hand and slammed her against the wall, lifting her feet off the floor. Maya choked, her hands scrabbling at his wrist. This was worse than before. He wasn't just holding her. He was killing her. "Traitor," Victor spat, his face inches from hers. "Just like all of them, trying to keep us apart." Dr. Sullivan, seeing his savior about to die, found courage he didn't know he possessed. He grabbed the only weapon available, a metal kidney basin, and scrambled to his feet. "Hey!" Sullivan's voice cracked. He swung the basin at the back of Victor's head. Clang! It was like hitting a bear with a tin can. Victor didn't even drop Maya. He just turned his head slowly, looking at Sullivan with annoyance. "Bad move, Doc." Victor threw Maya. She flew across the room, smashing into the glass cabinets filled with saline bags. Glass exploded. She hit the floor in a shower of shards, gasping, her vision going black. Victor turned his full attention to Sullivan. He grabbed the doctor by his white coat lapels and headbutted him. Sullivan's nose exploded. He crumpled instantly, unconscious. Victor turned back to Maya. She was crawling toward the door, dragging her broken body through broken glass, leaving a smear of blood. "No more games," Victor said. He reached down to his boot and pulled out a knife. A K-bar combat knife, 6-inch serrated blade. He'd hidden it well. The police hadn't found it. Maya hadn't seen it. "I'm going to cut the lies out of you," Victor whispered, walking toward her. Maya looked up. She was cornered, unarmed, injured. The police were outside, afraid to breach because they couldn't get a clear shot. Her eyes scanned desperately. The syringe was gone, kicked under a cabinet. But something else was there. The crash cart Victor had used to barricade the door. On top of it sat the defibrillator. Maya's eyes locked onto it. The paddles charged to 200 joules. It was a desperate, stupid idea. Defibrillators don't work like the movies. You can't just shock someone across the room. You have to make contact, and the safety mechanisms prevent accidental discharge. But this was an older model, the Zoll R series. Maya knew how to bypass the safety check. You could force a discharge in manual mode if you knew the sequence. Victor raised the knife. Maya scrambled backward, not away from him, but toward the crash cart. "Stay still," Victor hissed, advancing. Maya grabbed the paddles. She yanked them from the cradle. She hit the analyze button, then quickly switched to manual mode. She dialed the energy knob to maximum. 360 joules. The machine whined, a high-pitched capacitor charge rising in pitch. "Clear!" Maya screamed, mostly to psych herself up. Victor lunged with the knife. Maya thrust the paddles forward. She didn't try to place them on his chest. She jammed them onto his face. One paddle on his left cheek, one on his neck, right over the carotid artery. She hit both orange shock buttons simultaneously. Thump! The sound of electricity arcing through flesh was sickening. Primal. 360 joules of raw energy bypassed Victor's skin resistance and slammed directly into his brainstem and vagus nerve. It wasn't a heart restart, it was a neurological reboot. Victor went rigid. His back arched so violently it looked like his spine might snap. The knife flew from his hand, embedding itself in the acoustic ceiling tile. His eyes rolled back until only bloodshot whites showed. He stayed suspended by the current for one impossible second, his body a conduit for lightning. Then he collapsed like a demolished building. He hit the floor face first with a sound like a side of beef dropping. He didn't move. Smoke curled up from the electrical burns on his face where the paddles had made contact. Maya dropped the paddles. They clattered to the floor. She slumped against the crash cart, panting, trembling uncontrollably. Silence returned to Trauma Bay 2, just the sound of her ragged breathing and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Then the glass door shattered inward as SWAT finally breached. Flashbangs rolled into the room. Bang! Flash! Police, get down! Hands where we can see them! Men in black tactical gear stormed in, rifles raised. They saw the unconscious giant, they saw the unconscious doctor, and they saw the small nurse, bleeding, covered in glass, sitting against the cart, staring at her hands like she didn't recognize them. A SWAT officer approached, weapon lowered. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Maya looked up. She tried to speak, but her throat wouldn't work. She spat out a mouthful of blood. "I'm going on break," she whispered. Then, everything went black. The first thing Maya noticed was silence. The ER was never silent. Even at 4 a.m, there was always the hum of machines, the squeak of shoes on linoleum, the distant moan of someone in pain. But this silence was heavy, sterile, wrong. She opened her eyes. White ceiling tiles, not the ER. She tried to sit up, but her body screamed in protest. Her left arm was immobilized in a sling. Her right wrist was wrapped in a heavy splint. Her head throbbed with a rhythm that matched the beeping monitor beside her bed. "Easy, Tiger." The voice was soft, lacking its usual sharp edge. Maya turned her head to see Rita Blackwood sitting in the visitor's chair. The formidable charge nurse looked exhausted. Her makeup was smeared. She held a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "Rita?" Maya's voice came out as a croak. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed sandpaper. "You've been out for 8 hours, Rita said. She stood and checked Maya's IV drip with practiced efficiency. "Concussion, hairline fracture of the left clavicle, severe sprain of the right wrist, bruising on your neck so bad it looks like someone tried to strangle you." She paused. "Oh wait, someone did." Maya managed a weak smile. "You should see the other guy." "I did," Rita said, her face darkening. "He's in the secure ward at Harborview, induced coma. The electrical shock from the defibrillator stopped his heart twice on the way to the ambulance. They had to shock him again to get it restarted. Doctors say he's got permanent neurological damage, but he'll live long enough to spend the rest of his life in a cage." Maya closed her eyes. She'd killed men before, in Afghanistan, in Syria, always in combat, always clean. But this felt different, messy, personal. "The girl?" Maya asked. "Sophia?" "Stable, recovering from the overdose. She woke up 4 hours ago asking what happened. When we told her about her brother, she started crying." Rita's voice softened. Not sad crying, relief. She said, "Thank God someone finally stopped him." The door opened. Dr. Marcus Sullivan walked in. The arrogant physician looked like he'd gone 10 rounds with a heavyweight. He had a bandage across his nose where Victor had headbutted him. Both eyes were swollen, nearly shut, ringed with purple bruises. He walked slowly, carefully, like every step hurt. He stopped at the foot of Maya's bed. He looked at Rita, then at Maya. He opened his mouth, closed it, struggled to find words.
The police reviewed everything, Sullivan finally said, his voice quiet. The security footage. Officer Jenkins's body cam. They want to give you a commendation.
Am I being charged? Maya asked. The fear in her chest was real. She'd bypassed protocols. She'd used a defibrillator as a weapon. She'd assaulted a police officer. Charged? Sullivan laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. Maya, half the police department is downstairs waiting to shake your hand. Jenkins told the chief that if you hadn't tackled him, he would have blown the O2 tanks and killed everyone in the building. The mayor wants to give you a medal. He paused, looking down at his hands. And if you hadn't gone into that room... His voice cracked. I froze. I've been an attending for 12 years. I talk a big game in the ER. But when that monster grabbed me, I turned into a terrified child. You saved my life. You saved Sophia. You saved everyone. Maya looked at the ceiling. I just did the job, Doctor. No. Sullivan shook his head firmly. I mocked you. I called you a rookie. I said you wouldn't last 2 weeks. I was wrong about everything. You're the best nurse I've ever seen. The bravest person I've ever met. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it carefully. It was the shift schedule for the next month. I took the liberty of crossing out Traveler next to your name, Sullivan said. I wrote in staff, permanent position, charge nurse pay, full benefits. Nobody will ever question you again. The job is yours if you want it. Maya stared at the paper. She thought about the adrenaline, the fear, the violence, the way Victor's body had seized when the electricity hit him, the sound of his skull hitting the floor. Most people would run from a job where they almost died. I'll think about it, Maya whispered. But first I need Jell-O. I'm starving. Rita actually smiled. I'll get you the whole damn cart. After Sullivan and Rita left, Maya lay in the silence. The morphine drip made everything soft around the edges, but her mind was sharp, racing. The door opened again. This time it wasn't hospital staff. 2 men in suits walked in. The first was older, maybe 55, with gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent time in uniform. The second was younger, late 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Chen, the older man said. I'm Detective Frank Morrison, Seattle PD. This is Special Agent David Park, FBI. Maya's blood went cold. FBI meant federal investigation. Federal investigation meant they'd dug into her background. We need to talk about what happened last night, Morrison said. He pulled up a chair, sitting where Rita had been. Park stood by the door, arms crossed. Am I under arrest? Maya asked. No, Morrison said. But we have questions. Starting with who you really are. Maya said nothing. Parks stepped forward. Your employment application at Metropolitan General says you're Maya Chen, graduated from University of Washington nursing program 3 years ago. Clean record. No military service listed. He pulled out a folder and opened it. But that's not the whole truth, is it? We ran your fingerprints. Your real name is Maya Lin Chen. Born in San Francisco. Joined the Navy at 18. Became a hospital corpsman. Then you volunteered for something called a cultural support team. Maya's jaw tightened. Morrison leaned forward. CST, Special Operations Attachment. You were embedded with SEAL Team 3 in Afghanistan for 2 tours, then SEAL Team 7 in Syria. You were in Mosul. You were in Raqqa. That's classified, Maya said quietly. Not anymore, Park replied. The Navy liaison confirmed everything. You earned a Navy Cross for valor.
You pulled 3 wounded SEALs out of a kill zone while under heavy fire. You performed field surgery in a mud hut with mortars landing 50 meters away. You saved 14 lives in one engagement. Morrison's voice softened. You also lost your entire team in an IED attack outside Raqqa. You were the only survivor. You spent 4 months at Walter Reed with PTSD so severe they medically discharged you. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. She blinked them back.
Why are you here? She asked. Because we need to know if what happened last night was self-defense, or if you're a danger to yourself and others, Morrison said. The way you moved, Maya, the way you fought, that wasn't a nurse protecting patients. That was a soldier in combat mode. He was going to kill people, Maya said, her voice hard. He'd already put Ray Torres in the ICU. He was going to murder Dr. Sullivan. He was going to take Sophia and probably kill her too.
What was I supposed to do? Let him?
No, Park said, but you also could have waited for SWAT. Instead, you walked into that room alone. You impersonated the hostage-taker's sister. You attempted to drug him with a massive dose of sedatives without medical authorization, and when that failed, you used a defibrillator as a taser. I used the tools I had, Maya said. You used military combat tactics in a civilian hospital, Morrison corrected. That concerns us.
Maya sat up straighter despite the pain.
You want to know if I'm dangerous?
Fine. Yes, I know how to kill. I was trained by the best. But I came here to heal, not to hurt. I became a nurse because I was tired of putting people back together just so they could go back to war. I wanted to save lives that mattered, lives that weren't just numbers in a casualty report. Her voice broke. But last night, I didn't have a choice. That man was a monster.
And sometimes, the only way to protect the innocent is to stop the monster. So yes, I went into combat mode. Yes, I used everything I learned in the Navy, and I'd do it again. Morrison and Park exchanged a look. The hospital administrator wants to give you a promotion, Morrison said. The police chief wants to give you a medal. The mayor wants you at a press conference. But here's what's going to happen instead. Maya's heart sank. You're going to take 2 weeks of mandatory leave, Morrison continued. You're going to see the department's psychiatrist. You're going to get cleared for duty. And then you're going to come back to work, and you're going to save lives the way you're supposed to, with medicine, not violence. He stood up. But if I ever hear about you going cowboy again, if you ever put yourself or others at unnecessary risk, I will personally make sure your nursing license gets revoked. Are we clear? Crystal, Maya said. Park handed her a business card. My number, if you need to talk. PTSD doesn't just go away. Trust me, I know. After they left, Maya was alone again. She looked at the business card. FBI, Victim Services Coordinator, it read. She thought about Kandahar, about the IED that had killed her team, about holding her best friend Sarah while she bled out, begging Maya to tell her mom she loved her. She thought about why she'd really become a nurse, not just to heal, to atone, to prove to herself that her hands could do more than destroy. The door opened one more time. This time it was a young woman in her mid-20s, thin and pale, with blonde hair and scared eyes. Sophia Castellano. I'm sorry, Sophia said immediately. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he would come. I didn't think he'd find me. It's not your fault, Maya said gently. The police told me what you did. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. You almost died protecting me. Someone you don't even know. That's the job, Maya said. No. Sophia shook her head. I've been in the ER 17 times in 3 years. You know how many nurses actually looked at me? actually saw me as a person and not just another junkie overdose? None. Until you. She sat down in the chair by Maya's bed. Victor's been hurting me since I was 14. Our parents didn't believe me. The police couldn't stop him. I tried to run. I tried to hide. I tried to kill myself twice. Nothing worked. He always found me. He always dragged me back. Sophia wiped her eyes. But you stopped him. For the first time in 10 years, I'm free. Actually free. Maya reached out with her good hand. Sophia took it, squeezing tight. What are you going to do now? Maya asked. There's a women's shelter. They have a program for domestic violence survivors. Therapy, job training. They said I can stay as long as I need. Sophia's voice was stronger now. I'm going to get clean. For real this time. I'm going to testify against Victor, and I'm going to make something of my life. She stood up. Thank you, Maya. You gave me a second chance. I won't waste it. After Sophia left, Maya closed her eyes. The pain medication was pulling her under again. But before sleep took her, she thought about something her Navy instructor had told her years ago. Chen, you're small. You're quiet. People will underestimate you your whole life, but the deadliest warriors aren't the ones who look dangerous. They're the ones nobody sees coming. Maya smiled and let the darkness take her. 6 weeks later, Maya Chen walked through the automatic doors of Metropolitan General's emergency room. It was a Tuesday night, raining hard outside. The glass doors had been replaced. The scuff marks on the floor where Victor had rampaged were buffed out. If you looked closely at the linoleum near Trauma Bay 2, you could still see faint scorch marks from the defibrillator paddles. Big Mike, Raymond Torres, was back at the security desk. He had a titanium plate in his jaw now, and his smile was crooked, but he stood up the moment Maya walked in. He didn't say a word. He just saluted. A sharp, respectful military salute. Maya felt her throat tighten. She returned the salute and hurried past him to the nurse's station. The atmosphere had completely changed. When she logged into her computer, the usual chaos of the ER continued around her, but something was different. The residents who used to mock her were quiet. Dr. Sullivan was intubating a patient in Trauma 3. He looked up, saw Maya, nodded respectfully, and went back to work. Bennett? Rita's voice boomed from the triage desk. Maya looked up. Yes? Dr. Sullivan needs a chest tube tray in Trauma 3, and take the new girl with you. Rita gestured to a young nurse standing nervously in the corner. The new girl was maybe 22, fresh out of nursing school. She clutched her stethoscope like a lifeline. She looked terrified. Hi, the girl squeaked. I'm Jessica. I heard about you. Maya paused in gathering supplies. What did you hear? They call you the Titan Slayer, Jessica whispered, her eyes wide. Is it true? Did you really take down a 7-foot guy with just a defibrillator? Maya sighed. The legend had already grown beyond recognition. In another month, the story would probably involve her breathing fire. Jessica, Maya said, her voice calm and steady. I didn't slay a Titan. I protected my patients. That's the job. It's not about being a hero. It's about being the last line of defense when everything goes to hell. She handed Jessica a pair of gloves. Now come on. Dr. Sullivan gets cranky when we're slow. And trust me, you don't want to see me when I'm cranky. As they walked down the hall toward Trauma 3, Jessica looked at Maya with something close to worship. Do you think I'll ever be as brave as you? Maya stopped. She turned to look at the young nurse. She saw herself 6 weeks ago. Small, scared, underestimated. You already are, Maya said. You just don't know it yet. But when the moment comes, when someone needs you to stand between them and the worst thing they've ever faced, you'll find out exactly how strong you are. Jessica nodded,
standing a little taller. Maya glanced at the security monitor one last time. The rain lashed against the glass. The city was chaotic, dangerous, unpredictable. But inside Metropolitan General, on Maya Chen's watch, the monsters didn't stand a chance. 3 months after the incident, Maya stood in the hospital administrator's office on the 7th floor, staring out the window at the Seattle skyline. Rain streaked down the glass. It was always raining. "Have a seat, Ms. Chen," Administrator Patricia Westbrook said. She was a thin woman in her 60s, with steel gray hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She'd run Metropolitan General for 23 years and had the reputation of being harder than the concrete foundation the hospital sat on. Maya sat. Her shoulder had healed, but still ached when the weather changed. She'd gotten used to it. "I'll get straight to the point," Westbrook said, folding her hands on the desk. "The board met yesterday. We discussed your future here." Maya's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. The real consequences. The polite termination. The liability concerns. "We're promoting you," Westbrook said. Maya blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Senior trauma nurse, shift supervisor, 20% raise. You'll oversee training for new hires and coordinate with law enforcement on security protocols." Westbrook slid a folder across the desk. "Congratulations." Maya opened the folder. The contract was real. The numbers were real. "I don't understand," Maya said. "I violated protocol. I put myself at risk. I used medical equipment as a weapon." "You saved 17 lives," Westbrook replied. "I've been in hospital administration for 30 years. I've seen heroes and I've seen idiots. The difference is that heroes survive. You survived. You stopped a massacre, and you did it with the tools you had available." She leaned forward. "But I'm not naive, Ms. Chen. I've read the police reports. I know what you did in the Navy. I know about your PTSD diagnosis, and I need to know, are you going to be a liability or an asset?" Maya met her eyes. "I came here to heal people, not hurt them." "That's not what I asked." Maya took a breath. "If someone threatens my patients, I'll stop them, whatever it takes. If that makes me a liability, then you should fire me now." Westbrook studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was a cold smile, but genuine. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Sign the contract. You start Monday." Maya walked out of the office in a daze. In the elevator going down, she pulled out her phone. She had 47 missed calls. 32 from news outlets, 8 from her mother, 7 from numbers she didn't recognize. She scrolled past all of them and called the one person she needed to talk to. "Maya!" Sophia's voice was bright, clear, nothing like the broken girl Maya had met 3 months ago. "I was hoping you'd call. How are you?" "Confused," Maya admitted. "They promoted me." "That's amazing. See, I told you good things happen to good people." Maya smiled despite herself. "How's the program going?" 67 days clean, Sophia said, pride in her voice. "I got my GED. I'm starting community college in the fall, business administration. I want to run a nonprofit someday, help other women like me." "That's incredible, Sophia." "It's because of you," Sophia said quietly. "You showed me that it's possible to fight back, that we don't have to accept the monsters in our lives." After they hung up, Maya stood in the lobby, watching people come and go. Sick people, scared people, people having the worst day of their lives. And somewhere in this building, nurses and doctors were fighting to make those days better. This was where she belonged. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Is this Maya Chen?" The voice was male, older, with a southern accent. "Who's asking?" "My name is Robert Castellano. I'm Sophia's father." Maya's grip tightened on the phone. According to Sophia, her father hadn't believed her about Victor's abuse, had sided with his son, had called Sophia a liar. "I know what you're thinking," Robert said quickly, "and you're right to hate me. I failed my daughter. I believed Victor's lies. I told myself Sophia was just troubled, just acting out. I was wrong about everything. Why are you calling me?" "To say thank you. And to say I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "Sophia came to see me last week. First time in 2 years. She told me what you did, how you risked your life for a stranger, how you gave her a chance to start over." Maya didn't respond. "I'm testifying against Victor at his trial next month," Robert continued. "I'm telling the court everything I should have said years ago. I'm telling them my son is a monster, and he deserves to rot in prison. And it's because of you. Because you showed me that protecting family doesn't mean protecting the person hurting them." "Mr. Castellano, I didn't do it for you." "I know. You did it because it was right. But I wanted you to know that what you did saved more than Sophia's life. It saved what's left of our family." He paused. "Thank you, Nurse Jen. Thank you for being the parent I should have been." The line went dead. Maya stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, feeling something break open in her chest. Not pain. Something else. Something like hope. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat in her small apartment, looking at old photos on her laptop. Photos from Afghanistan. Her team. Sarah Rodriguez, the medic she'd held while she died. Marcus Webb, the SEAL who'd called her Doc and made terrible jokes. Jennifer Park, the translator who'd become her best friend. All dead, blown apart by an IED on a road outside Raqqa. And Maya had survived. Again. She closed the laptop and grabbed her keys. 20 minutes later, she stood outside a small house in the suburb of Bellevue. Lights were on inside. She could hear a TV playing. Laughter. She rang the doorbell. A woman in her 40s answered. She had kind eyes and graying hair. When she saw Maya, her face went pale. "Maya," she whispered. "Oh my God." "Hi, Mrs. Rodriguez," Maya said. "I'm sorry to show up like this. I should have called." No, come in, please." Sarah's mother pulled Maya into a hug. She smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Like safety. Inside, Sarah's father stood up from the couch. He was a big man, former Army, with a handshake that could crush rocks. But when he saw Maya, his eyes filled with tears. "They told us you were dead too," Mr. Rodriguez said. "After the attack. They said there were no survivors." "There weren't supposed to be," Maya said quietly. "I got lucky." Mrs. Rodriguez led her to the couch. "We got your letter, the one you sent from Walter Reed, about how Sarah died, how you held her, how her last words were about us." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "We never got to thank you," Mr. Rodriguez said, "for being with her, for making sure she wasn't alone." "I'm sorry I couldn't save her," Maya whispered. "I tried everything. I did everything right." But there was too much damage. The shrapnel. "Stop," Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. She took Maya's hands. "You gave us the greatest gift. You told us Sarah didn't suffer. You told us she wasn't scared. You told us her last thoughts were of home. That's everything to a parent." They talked for 2 hours, about Sarah, about the war, about the cost of serving, about survivor's guilt and PTSD and the weight of coming home when others didn't. "Sarah wrote about you in her letters," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "She called you her sister.
She said if anything ever happened to her, you'd be the one to make sure we knew the truth. She was my best friend, Maya said. And you honored her memory, Mr. Rodriguez said. By surviving, by becoming a nurse, by saving lives. Sarah would be so proud of you. When Maya left that night, something had shifted. The weight was still there, the guilt, the memories, but it felt different. Like maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to live. The trial of Viktor Kozlov began on a cold Monday in November. Maya sat in the courthouse, wearing her best suit, hands folded in her lap. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims' advocates, police officers, hospital staff. Viktor was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He'd lost weight. His face had a sunken, hollow look. The electrical burns had left permanent scars on his cheek and neck. When he saw Maya, something flickered in his eyes. Not rage. Fear. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Andrea Walsh, called Maya to the stand. Ms. Chen, please describe the events of the night in question. Maya spoke clearly, clinically. She described Victor's assault on Ray Torres, the destruction of the ER, the hostage situation, her decision to enter the trauma bay. And why did you make that decision? Walsh asked. Why not wait for SWAT? Because Dr. Sullivan was dying, Maya said. Because every second we waited was a second closer to a funeral. Because I was the only person in that building with the training to stop him. Victor's lawyer, a nervous young public defender, tried to paint Maya as a vigilante, as someone with military training who'd used excessive force. Isn't it true, Ms. Chen, that you had multiple opportunities to retreat? That you chose to engage in hand-to-hand combat? I chose to protect my patients, Maya said calmly. You used a defibrillator as a weapon. You delivered 360 joules of electricity to my client's head. That's enough to kill a person. It's also what saved everyone else in that room, Maya replied, including your client. If I'd wanted him dead, I would have let Officer Jenkins shoot him in front of the oxygen tanks. The resulting explosion would have killed 20 people, but Viktor Kozlov would have been just as dead. Instead, I risked my life to subdue him without casualties. The courtroom was silent. Sophia testified next. She was calm, composed, devastating. She described 10 years of abuse. Hospital records supported every word. Restraining orders that Viktor had violated 17 times. Police reports that had gone nowhere. My brother told me no one would ever believe me, Sophia said. He told me I was worthless, that I deserved everything he did to me. He told me if I ever tried to leave, he'd find me and kill me. She looked directly at Viktor. But Nurse Chen believed me. She didn't even know me, and she put her life on the line to protect me. She showed me that I was worth saving, and because of her, I'm finally free. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Assault with intent to kill, kidnapping, violation of a restraining order, attempted murder. The judge sentenced Viktor to 35 years in prison without possibility of parole. As they led him out, Viktor looked at Maya one last time. You should have let me die, he said quietly. That's not my job, Maya replied. My job is to save lives, even yours. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Maya. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust in her face. Ms. Chen, how does it feel to be a hero? What would you say to other nurses facing violent patients? Are you planning to write a book? Do a movie deal? Maya pushed through the crowd without answering. She made it to her car, locked the doors, and sat in silence. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Sullivan. Drinks on me tonight. The whole team wants to celebrate. Another text from Rita. Proud of you, kid. You did good. Another from Jessica, the new nurse. You're my hero. Maya stared at the messages. 6 months ago, she'd been a ghost. A broken veteran hiding from her past, trying to disappear into the chaos of the ER. Now she was a legend, a symbol, a hero. But she didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd done what needed to be done. Nothing more, nothing less. She started the car and drove back to the hospital. There was a shift starting in an hour. Patients who needed help, lives that needed saving. That was the job. That night, the ER was unusually quiet. Maya stood at the nurse's station, reviewing charts, when Big Mike called from the security desk. "Maya, got a visitor for you." Maya looked up to see a man in a navy dress uniform walking through the doors. He was in his 50s, with the bearing of someone who'd spent decades in command. She recognized the ribbons on his chest. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Navy Cross. "Master Chief Petty Officer Chen," the man said, using her old rank. "Permission to speak with you?" Maya's heart stopped. She knew that voice. "Commander Price?" "Captain now," he said with a smile. "Retired, but I heard about what happened here. Thought I'd come see for myself if the legend was true."
Captain Price had been her commanding officer in Syria. He'd been the one to pull her from the wreckage after the IED, the one who'd held her hand at Walter Reed when she'd woken up screaming. "What are you doing here, sir?" "I'm running a program now, for veterans transitioning to civilian life, PTSD treatment, job placement. I help people like us find purpose after the uniform comes off." He looked around the ER. "Looks like you found yours." "I'm trying," Maya said. "You did more than try. You saved 17 lives. You stopped a massacre. You proved that our training doesn't make us monsters. It makes us protectors." He handed her a business card. "I'm starting a new initiative, teaching crisis response to first responders, police, firefighters, EMTs, nurses. I want you to be an instructor." Maya looked at the card. "I'm not qualified to teach." "You're the most qualified person I know. You've been in combat. You've faced down threats most people can't imagine. And you've shown that it's possible to use that training to save lives, not take them." He paused. "Think about it. The program starts in 3 months. I'd be honored to have you." After he left, Maya stood there holding the card. For so long she'd tried to bury her past, to pretend the warrior she'd been didn't exist anymore. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe the warrior wasn't something to hide. Maybe it was something to use, to teach, to share with others who needed that strength. Rita appeared beside her. "Who is that?" "Someone from my past," Maya said, "offering me a future. You thinking about taking it?" Maya looked around the ER, at the nurses rushing between patients, at Dr. Sullivan calmly handling a trauma, at Jessica nervously starting her first solo 1-5, at the organized chaos that she'd come to love. "I don't know yet," Maya said, "but I think I'm finally ready to find out who I'm supposed to be." Rita squeezed her shoulder. "You already know, kid. You're exactly who you need to be. Now get back to work. We've got patience." Maya smiled and picked up a chart. The job wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But it was hers. And for the first time since Afghanistan, that felt like enough. 6 months after the trial, Maya stood in front of 40 police officers, firefighters, and paramedics in a training facility outside Seattle. They stared at her with skepticism. She was 5'1" in a room full of people who averaged 6 feet. She looked like someone's kid sister, not an instructor. "My name is Maya Chen," she began. 6 months ago, I took down a 7'2" man who was high on methamphetamine and trying to murder my patients. I weigh 110 pounds. He weighed 340. The math doesn't work, does it?" A few officers smirked.
One whispered something to his partner. The math works, Maya continued. When you understand that size doesn't matter, training does. Tactics do. And most importantly, the will to act when everyone else freezes. She pulled up security footage on the screen behind her. The ER Victor charging through the doors, Ray Torres getting thrown like a rag doll. The room went silent. This is what excited delirium looks like. This is what PCP psychosis looks like. This is what you'll face on the worst night of your career. And when you do, you won't have time to think. You'll only have time to react. She taught them pressure points, joint locks, how to redirect momentum, how to recognize when someone is beyond reasoning, and when force is the only option left. During the lunch break, a young paramedic approached her. His name tag read Collins. Ms. Chen, can I ask you something? Sure. How do you deal with it? The aftermath. I've been on 3 calls where patients died. I can't sleep. I keep seeing their faces. Maya looked at him. She saw herself 3 years ago. Broken. Haunted. You don't deal with it, she said quietly. You carry it. Every life you couldn't save becomes part of you. But here's what they don't tell you. So does every life you did save. And eventually, if you're lucky, the ones you saved start to outnumber the ones you lost. Collins nodded, his eyes wet. Get help, Maya added. Therapy, support groups. Don't do what I did and try to bury it. That only works until it doesn't. That evening, Maya returned to Metropolitan General for her shift. As she walked through the ER, she noticed the changes. New security protocols, panic buttons at every station, reinforced glass, metal detectors at the entrance, all because of what happened that night. Rita was at the nurses' station reviewing charts. She looked up when Maya approached. How is the teaching gig? Harder than I thought, Maya admitted. They look at me like I'm going to break. Good. Let them underestimate you. Then prove them wrong. Rita slid a chart across the desk. Got a patient for you in Trauma 1, 26-year-old female, domestic violence. Boyfriend beat her unconscious. Police arrested him, but she's refusing to press charges. Maya's jaw tightened. She knew that story. She'd heard it from Sophia. She'd seen it 1,000 times. She walked into Trauma 1. The young woman lay on the gurney, her face swollen and bruised. One eye was completely shut. Her name was Amanda. Hi, Amanda. I'm Maya. I'm going to take care of you. I don't need care, Amanda mumbled through split lips. I just need to go home. Your boyfriend did this to you. It was an accident. He didn't mean it. He was just stressed. Maya pulled up a chair and sat down beside the bed. Can I tell you a story? Amanda didn't respond, but she didn't say no. 6 months ago, a man came into this ER to kill his sister. He'd been abusing her for 10 years. She tried to leave him 17 times. He found her every single time. She thought she'd never be free. What happened? Amanda asked quietly. I stopped him. And she got free. She's in college now. She's building a life. She's happy. Maya leaned forward. But it only worked because she let us help her. Because she finally said, enough. Amanda started crying. He'll kill me if I leave. He'll kill you if you stay, Maya said. I've seen it too many times. It always escalates. Always. The question isn't if, it's when. I'm scared. I know. But there are people who can protect you. Shelters, restraining orders, support groups. Maya took her hand. You don't have to do this alone. 2 hours later, Amanda agreed to go to a women's shelter. Social services came to transport her. As they wheeled her out, she looked back at Maya, Thank you, she whispered. Maya watched her go, feeling that familiar ache in her chest. One life saved. How many more to go? You can't save them all, Rita said, appearing beside her. I can try. And that's why you're good at this. Rita handed her another chart. But right now, I need you in Trauma 3, MVA victim, possible internal bleeding. The shift blurred into organized chaos. Heart attacks, strokes, overdoses, a shooting victim, a kid who'd fallen off a roof. The endless parade of human suffering that was the emergency room. At 3 a.m., during a rare quiet moment, Maya stood outside getting air. The rain had stopped. The city was silent. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Guess what? I got accepted to University of Washington. Business program. Full scholarship. I'm going to make something of myself, Maya. Because you showed me I could. Maya smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. This was why. This was the whole reason. Maya. She turned to see Dr. Sullivan standing in the doorway. He looked exhausted, his scrubs stained with blood from the shooting victim. Got a minute? They sat on the bench outside the ER entrance. For a while, neither spoke. I'm leaving, Sullivan finally said. Maya looked at him sharply. What? Not the hospital, the ER. I'm transferring to cardiology. Scheduled procedures. Predictable hours. No more violence. Because of what happened? Because I realized I'm not cut out for this. He stared at his hands. I thought I was. I've got the skills, the knowledge. But when Victor grabbed me, when I felt his hands around my throat, I realized something. I'm a coward. You're not a coward. Yes, I am. And that's okay. Not everyone is built for combat. You are. I'm not. He looked at her. You should apply for my position. Attending physician. Maya laughed. I'm a nurse, not a doctor. So go to medical school. You're smart enough. You've got the experience. Hell, you've got more real-world trauma experience than half the residents. He stood up. Think about it. This place needs people like you. People who don't freeze when hell breaks loose. After he left, Maya sat alone thinking. Medical school. She'd never considered it. Nursing had always been enough. But maybe Sullivan was right. Maybe she could do more. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Is this Maya Chen? The voice was familiar, but she couldn't place it. Who is this? Officer Jenkins, from that night. Maya remembered. The cop she'd tackled to prevent him from shooting the oxygen tanks. I'm calling because I wanted to apologize, Jenkins said. I've been thinking about that night for 6 months, about how I almost got everyone killed, about how you saved my life and I repaid you by treating you like a criminal. You were doing your job. No. I was scared and I took it out on you. He paused. I quit the force last month, started teaching at the police academy, crisis intervention, de-escalation tactics, and I tell every class about you, about the 5'1" nurse who had more courage than an entire SWAT team. I wasn't courageous. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You taught me that. He cleared his throat. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm sorry. After they hung up, Maya sat in silence. The apologies were piling up, the gratitude, the recognition. But none of it changed the fundamental truth. She'd almost died that night. She'd walked into a room with a monster and barely walked out. And she'd do it again in a heartbeat. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the Metropolitan General Auditorium. The room was packed. Hospital board members, staff, police, media. Sophia sat in the front row, beaming. Administrator Westbrook stood at the podium. It's my honor to present the Metropolitan General Medal of Valor to Nurse Maya Chen for extraordinary heroism in the line of duty. Applause thundered through the room. Maya walked to the stage, feeling like an imposter. She wasn't a hero. She was just someone who'd done what needed to be done. Westbrook handed her a plaque and a medal. You exemplify the best of what healthcare can be. Thank you for your service. More applause. Cameras flashed. Maya looked out at the crowd and saw Jessica, the new nurse, staring at her with stars in her eyes. She saw Rita actually smiling. She saw Big Mike giving her a thumbs up. And in the back row, she saw Captain Price in his Navy uniform, saluting. At the reception afterward, people swarmed Maya. Everyone wanted to shake her hand, take photos, hear the story. How did you stay so calm? Weren't you scared? Would you do it again? Maya answered politely, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about Amanda, the domestic violence victim, about whether she'd actually gone to the shelter or gone back to her boyfriend, about all the Amandas and Sophias in the world who needed someone to stand between them and the monsters. You look overwhelmed, a voice said beside her. Maya turned to see an older woman in her 70s, elegant in a gray suit. I'm sorry, have we met? No, but I know who you are. My name is Catherine Morrison. I run the Seattle Women's Crisis Center. I came here with a proposition. They found a quiet corner. Catherine spoke quickly, efficiently. We need someone like you, someone who understands violence, who knows how to stop it. We're launching a new program, teaching self-defense to abuse victims, giving them tools to protect themselves. She handed Maya a business card. I want you to run it. I already have 2 jobs, Maya said. The ER and the first responder training. Then make this your 3rd. Or quit one of the others. But don't waste this gift you have. Don't waste this platform. You've become a symbol, Maya. Use that. Help people who can't help themselves. Maya looked at the card. Then she looked across the room at Sophia, who was laughing with some hospital staff, looking genuinely happy for the first time since Maya had known her. I'll think about it, Maya said. Don't think too long. There are women out there right now in the same situation Sophia was in, waiting for someone to show them they're worth saving. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat in her apartment thinking about everything that had happened in the past year. The attack, the trial, the teaching, the medal. She'd spent 3 years trying to run from who she was, trying to pretend the warrior didn't exist, trying to be just a nurse, just normal, just safe. But maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe the warrior and the healer weren't separate. Maybe they were 2 sides of the same coin. She picked up her phone and called Captain Price. Captain, it's Maya. I've been thinking about your offer, the instructor position. And? I'll do it. But I want to expand it. Not just first responders. I want to teach domestic violence survivors, abuse victims, people who've never thrown a punch in their lives. I want to teach them that they're not helpless. Price was quiet for a moment. That's ambitious. That's necessary. You're right. When can you start? I already have. The next morning, Maya walked into the ER for what would be one of her last regular shifts. She'd given her notice, not to quit, but to transition to part-time. The rest of her time would go to teaching, to building something bigger. Rita met her at the nurses' station. Heard you're leaving us. Not leaving. Evolving. Same thing. Rita's voice was gruff, but her eyes were soft. You're going to change lives, kid. More than you already have. I learned from the best, Maya said. The shift was routine until 11 p.m. Then the ambulance bay doors crashed open and paramedics rushed in with a gurney. Female, early 20s, multiple stab wounds, unresponsive. Maya's training kicked in. She ran to the trauma bay, scrubbing in, preparing. The victim was young, maybe 22. Blonde hair matted with blood, defensive wounds on her hands.
Boyfriend did it, one of the paramedics said. Neighbors called it in. He's in custody. Maya worked mechanically, efficiently, stopping bleeding, starting lines, assessing damage. The girl was in bad shape, but not beyond saving. 3 hours later, she was stable, alive. She'd need surgery, months of recovery, probably years of therapy. But she'd live. As Maya cleaned up, peeling off bloody gloves, Jessica approached her.
"How do you do it?" the young nurse asked. "How do you see this night after night and not break?"
Maya looked at her.
"You do break. Every single time. But then you put yourself back together and you go save the next one. Because if we don't, who will?"
Jessica nodded slowly.
"Will you teach me? Really teach me? Not just the medical stuff, the other part. The standing up when everyone else runs away part."
Maya smiled.
"Yeah, I'll teach you."
1 year after the night Viktor Kozlov tried to turn the ER into a killing ground, Maya stood in a gymnasium teaching her 5th self-defense class. 20 women stood in front of her, ranging from 18 to 65. All survivors, all fighters. "Size doesn't matter," Maya told them. "Training does. Confidence does. The belief that you deserve to be safe matters more than anything." She demonstrated holds, breaks, pressure points. She taught them to yell, to fight back, to refuse to be victims. "You are not weak," she said. "You are not helpless. You are survivors, and survivors fight." After class, a woman in her 50s approached. Her name was Linda. She'd been in an abusive marriage for 28 years. "I left him last week," Linda said. "First time I've lived alone in 3 decades. I'm terrified." "You should be proud," Maya said. "I am, but I'm also scared he'll find me, that he'll kill me." "Then we make sure you're ready." Maya put a hand on her shoulder. "You know what the difference is between a victim and a survivor? A victim waits for someone to save them. A survivor saves themselves. You're already a survivor, Linda. Now, I'm just making sure you stay alive." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." As Maya drove home that night, she thought about all the lives she'd touched. Sophia, in college now. Amanda, 6 months clean and living in a safe apartment. Linda, finally free. The paramedic, Collins, who'd started therapy and was sleeping through the night again. The ripples spread further than she could see. Her phone rang. It was Rita. "Turn on the news," Rita said without preamble. Maya pulled over and pulled up the news on her phone. The headline made her heart stop. "Viktor Kozlov found dead in prison cell. Apparent suicide." She read the article. Viktor had hanged himself with a bedsheet. Left no note. Guards found him during morning rounds. Maya sat in her car staring at the screen. She waited to feel something. Relief, satisfaction, closure. Instead, she felt empty. She called Sophia. "I saw," Sophia said quietly. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. Are you?" "Yeah, I think I am." Sophia's voice was steady. "He doesn't get to haunt me anymore. He doesn't get to be the monster in my nightmares. He's just gone." "How does it feel?" "Like I can finally breathe." After they hung up, Maya sat in the darkness. Viktor Kozlov was dead. The monster was gone. But there were other monsters. There always would be. And there would always be people who needed someone to stand between them and the darkness. Maya started the car and drove to the hospital.
She wasn't scheduled to work, but she went anyway. Because that's what she did. That's who she was.
She walked through the ER doors that had been shattered and rebuilt, and saw the organized chaos she'd come to love. Nurses rushing, doctors shouting, patients crying. Life and death dancing their eternal dance. Big Mike looked up from the security desk and smiled. Rita was at the nurses' station, handling 3 crises at once. Jessica was starting an IV, her hands steady and sure now. Dr. Sullivan had transferred to cardiology, but he stopped by sometimes to say hello. Officer Jenkins taught at the academy and sent Maya updates on his students.
Sophia was thriving in college. Amanda was building a new life. Linda had filed for divorce and was learning to live without fear. The ripples kept spreading. Maya picked up a chart and got to work. Because this was her calling. Not just healing, not just fighting. Both. Always both. She was the warrior and the healer. The protector and the nurse.
The 5'1" giant who proved that size didn't matter, that courage came in unexpected packages, that the quietest voices could become the loudest when it mattered most. She was Maya Chen, and she was exactly where she belonged. In a world that constantly told her she was too small, too quiet, too damaged, she'd proven that true strength isn't measured in pounds or inches. It's measured in the will to stand your ground when everyone else runs away. It's measured in the lives you save, the people you protect, the monsters you stop. Viktor Kozlov had been a force of nature, but Maya Chen was a force of will, and will always wins in the end. The ER needed her. The city needed her. The broken and beaten and terrified needed her. And she would be there. Every shift, every crisis, every battle. Because that was the job, and Maya Chen never walked away from the job. The small nurse who became a legend, the rookie who saved them all, the warrior who chose to heal, the woman who proved that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear scrubs and carry trauma shears and refuse to let the monsters win. This was her story. This was her truth. And it was far from over.